Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Best Days at Work. And today we're joined by Rob Cross. Rob is the author of The Great Man is Dead and founder of Muru Leadership. He's a former HR director and indeed current HR director and was with the Royal Australian Air Force previous to that. So, Rob, what was your best day at work and why?
Yeah, I mean, when we discussed this and you posed the question, I had to dig deep to really get the actual best day. And I immediately, when I sort of got there, I remember this distinct moment where I had a new team together. So it was my early in my HR career and or HRD career, and I pulled this, inherited this team. They were all new. They weren't really gelling all that well. And I remember there was one particular meeting that got a bit tense. There was a lot of really healthy discussion, a lot of debate. And there was a moment where I sort of sat back and saw them working together as a team for the first time ever. I thought, wow, this is incredible. This is actually what it looks like. And it wasn't necessarily to do with me and how I was leading the team. It was to do with the people in the room, that they had such a deep desire to make a difference to the organization. And they were willing to push each other and challenge each other to actually do that. And it was the moment where I thought, this is what it's all about. I just felt so proud that these people had created such an environment to be able to do that. And that was by far, as I think about all the various other best experiences that I've had, it always comes back to seeing people do something incredible and work together as a real team. All the things that we read about, and to actually see it in practice was a delight, absolute delight.
And what was it about that journey of getting them to be that team or them getting themselves to be that team, bit of both? What was the tipping point? What led to it, do you think?
Yeah, I think because they'd all worked in silos and they'd been set up before I inherited the team, they'd been set up to work in silos. So each one was head down, focused only on what they needed to do. I think there was two things that really created that tipping point. One was getting a really clear sense of purpose for why we were there, what we were there to do, and in HR actually often that feels quite complex and difficult. But when you step right back and say, actually, what are we here to contribute to the people of this organisation to help people feel like this is a great place to work, as they say, that was number one, because when we got that, actually everybody gelled. They lifted out of the silos and thought about this purpose. I think the second element was actually getting people to talk and treat each other like humans and get to know each other like humans. What struck me is that the team had two people who had worked together for years, and they'd seen people like the rest of the team come and go. And so their relationship was really close, but the relationship between them and everybody else was really quite distant, because, well, why would they let anybody else in? Because, people come and go. And so, by spending time together, really encouraging those relationships, encouraging people to spend time together, us as a team going out for dinner and doing all those things that you used to do pre-COVID, made such a difference to the dynamic, where people started to build that sense of trust, to be willing to challenge each other and be willing to really look at how we could work better together. And for me, a sense of purpose and just that willingness to build relationships was the clincher.
Yeah, got you. Okie doke. Thanks, Rob. That sounds excellent. And what was your worst day at work and why?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I was talking to a CIO friend of mine the other day. I said, when you think through all the bosses you've had, all the jobs you've had, just yeah, and he's well into his 50s. So he's been working for quite a while. He said, I could probably count on one hand how many great ones I've had, which was a bit sad. But when you ask that question, unfortunately, it's very easy to find those moments. And I remember a particular moment, again back in my corporate world, where we're having to engage in this sort of design workshop, the type of thing you do when you're looking at restructuring, and and, and the person who was leading it was just taking us down a rabbit hole that was just void of any form of logic, and it was going to be destructive for the business. And we, as a leadership team, for our part of the business, we're just looking at it going, actually, we can't do this. We just can't do this. It will destroy this business. And ultimately it did. And not being able to bring logic to that, I just felt completely helpless. And in that moment, by far my worst day, because you're thinking, I can't influence this. I've used every tip and trick that I've got, and I can't make a difference in this moment. And that, sort of every time you get asked that question in interviews and other things, worst day at work, I always go back to that moment because I've challenged myself constantly. So what else could I have done? And unfortunately, in that moment, I just don't think there was anything else. We just literally had to go into the abyss.
Yeah, I'm with you. So sometimes it's the stress of helplessness, isn't it? When you think there's nothing I can.
Absolutely, yeah. Stress or helplessness. That's exactly it. And I think all of us in this field, yeah, we're here to make a difference. We're here to contribute. We're here to help people. And when you can't do that, I think it's just so. I mean, feeling helpless is terrible because you want to make that difference.
Bouncing off from that point and just asking a quick supplementary question, I probably might have slightly confused our members when I said you were a former HRD and a current HRD. Well, which is it, Richard? Make your mind up. But of course, what you do now is that you run Muru Leadership, thought leadership about teams and leadership, and you are also an HR director still with a private equity firm. So what I was going to ask was, you're in a sort of pretty unique, that's an absolute, you see the unique or it's not, you're in a unique position, let's say, of being in both worlds.
Yeah.
Now that you're in that with a foot in both camps, as it were, but also looking back on corporate life, are there some things you miss about just being in the HR director role, and are there some things that you don't miss at all?
No, I miss having a dedicated team and leading a team. And when you're in that dedicated role, you've got, I mean, my team, my last corporate role was 50 people, and I used to really enjoy leading a team in that way. Um, and I think that's number one. What I don't miss though, and in the world that I operate now, is all of the organizational politics and the things that just stop organizations from fulfilling their potential. And the wonderful thing about the world now through Muru, it's deeply human and looks at the real human drivers of what creates success in the private equity space. It's very commercial and about how do you accelerate performance, and the two worlds marry up really nicely. The wonderful thing about it is you can step outside of the political environment and actually look at how do we create real change here, and how do we deliver real performance through unlocking the potential of people. And my sense is there's got to be something in there, especially for HR directors because of the unique role that we all play, to help them step out of that politics and the usual stuff that prevents things being achieved in organizations, so they can have the real impact that they're capable of having. When I figure that out, I'll write another book. And I mean, it's the perennial issue that we all grapple with. But yeah, that's the one thing I don't miss, because you just spend more time and energy focused on that than on the difference you're making. So
Yeah, excellent. Well, we're going to hold you to that, Rob. We look forward to book number 2. That sounds great. And Rob, thank you ever so much.
thank you, Richard.